gender-based inequality and continues to be one of the most notable human rights violations within all societies. Now, GBV, it's violence directed against a person because of their gender. Both women and men experience GBV, but the majority of victims are women and girls.
Hey friends, and welcome to the Unpack Show podcast with myself, Johannes Baloyi, and thank you for joining me because this is a place where we unpack the question we have in mind on the challenges we come across as we go about building and improving our lives. Friends, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you can be notified when we release a new episode. This week I want us to talk about gender-based violence because gender-based violence has seemed to be one of the hottest topics that we talk about daily. Across all media platforms, we talk about gender-based violence. And, the more we talk about gender-based violence, the more I develop a question to say that what actually influences gender-based violence? What is the root of gender-based violence? Where does it come from? Because the more we talk about it, it seems like the more it's happening. It seems like it's reaching its highest peak. And that's why I've started to develop a question to ask myself that what actually influences gender-based violence? Where does it come from? What is the roots of gender-based violence? So that's why this week I want us to talk about gender-based violence, to understand its root, to understand the influence of gender-based violence, so that we can be able to have a clear picture as to what is gender-based violence and what influence gender-based violence. So like we do it on the Unpack Show podcast, giving you the opportunity to be part of the conversation by sending through a voice note just to share your own view of the every topic that we talk about on the podcast. So this week we have a voice note of Tisetso Marakalla sharing with us his own view about gender-based violence. So let's hear what Tisetso has to say about gender-based violence.
Tisetso here, GBV. Now, let me start by saying GBV, gender-based violence, it's a phenomenon that is let me put it like this, it's deeply rooted in gender-based inequality and continues to be one of the most notable human rights violations within all societies. Now, GBV, it's violence directed against a person because of their gender. Both women and men experience GBV, but the majority of victims are women and girls. Now, this thing, it's a pandemic that needs to be given the same attention as other pandemics. According to statistics, Interpol has even named South Africa the rape capital of the world because every 3 seconds a woman is raped. Every 3 seconds a child is raped. Every 14 seconds a woman is killed in South Africa. Now you find that there are people that are being abused. They are in a relationship whereby they are being abused each and every day. But then the reason why they do not want to come out of that relationship is because they are looking at life without this person. This person has never lived the life that this person is giving them. Even though they are abusing them, you'd find a woman saying, but then I cannot leave him because I will be stranded financially. These abusers, they abuse these people because they have that superior complex. They feel that, if they are able to do things for those people, then they have control over them. Now, the problem that we face is that GBV is often hidden and victims are silent. because they are fearing stigma and further violence. Now we have to make a lifelong pledge and say, no, we have to eradicate this. We have to do away with this. Now, it all starts with who? It all starts with you, Baidu.
This is what Disetso Marakala has to say about his own view on gender-based violence. And here's something that he's mentioning, that a lot of people are still stuck in relationship where they are abused because of they are afraid of stigma, number one. Point number two is that people are experiencing GBV, and they kind of have a fear of leaving their partner because of it is through their partner that they are able to be independent. You know, with what Disetso Marakala is saying, he reminds me of the conversation that I once had with Chris Chambiwa on the Unpacked Show podcast. And the conversation I had with Chris Chambiwa was about generational trauma. So Chris Chambiwa is the therapist, a behavioral coach, and a author of Inspired Pain. So Chris said something along our conversation when we were talking about generational trauma. And the question I asked Chris was very specific, was that what is generational trauma and why do we experience generational trauma? And what Chris said, I loved how specific and deliberate he was, and his approach to the question that I asked. And he said that first, we should understand that generational trauma, it's not something that started right now. It's something that started back in the era of our great grandmothers and our great grandfathers. And right now, the fear we have for generational trauma, it seems like it's something that just started now. And what I've actually came to realize is that our grandmothers and our grandfathers, when they were experiencing generational trauma, they were so quiet, not talking about it. That's why it seems like they never experienced that's why it seems like they never experienced abuse. And right now with us, the generation of today, we talk about the things that we go through. We've got a lot of platforms, media platforms, where we can be able to talk. We talk about even during the external conversation that we have on day-to-day basis with each other. We do talk about these things. That's why it seems like we are the only generation that is actually experiencing abuse. So Chris said that generational trauma, it's actually the result of both psychological and spiritual effects. What was happening is that back in the era of our grandmothers and great-grandfathers, what was happening is that in their own generation, they were so inflicted with fear. That's why it was difficult for them to be able to thrive and free themselves from the situation and experiences that they were going through. And what I've come to realize, according to my research and my findings about the era of our great-grandmothers and our great-grandfathers, is that during their days, marriage was seen as the greatest thing. As a greatest thing, and also as a breakthrough, because of the only way for women in their era, I'm talking particularly about our grandmothers. The only way for them to be free and liberated in life, and to be free, liberated, and to also be independent, was through a marriage. Because of during their era, women were less likely to get employment, so only men were highly recommended for getting employed. So you can imagine that finance is one of the biggest factor contributing to our daily basis. So the only way for a woman to be independent and free was to get married to a partner who's going to be able to take care of them and support them. So that was the only way for a woman to be independent and free. And so even families were embracing marriages. Families were regarding marriage as a high, we're valuing marriage highly, because of if you were not married, you were actually not seen as a woman enough or as a man enough. So most of the women, for them to be seen as a woman enough, they had to get married so that they can be able to be highly looked up to in the community and even in the family. So you can imagine that if marriage was something that was so much embraced, even if you were so abused in a marriage, there was nowhere where you can go as a woman. If you go back to your family is going to tell you that you are married. What do you want? Go and take care of your marriage. Go and deal with your marriage. That's why there's this notion. To be honest, I feel like that notion is just a BS. This notion of saying that libitla la mosadi ke bohadi, even though we actually have to understand that there's what we call responsibility, but most of women experienced abuse and they were not able to get out of their marriage because of this notion of libitla la mosadi ke bohadi. Because of, you can imagine that the only way for a woman to be independent and free was to get married. So now, if a woman decide to leave their marriage, what was going to happen to them? Who was going to take care of their children? Who was going to take care of them? Because of back in their family, they were being motivated, being fueled to get married. So you see, back in the generation of our grandmothers and grandfathers, they were so much inflicted with fear. That's why they had a lot of limiting conversations of saying that if you leave your marriage, who's going to take care of you? If you leave your marriage, who's going to take care of your children? If you leave your marriage, where will you go? Because of, if you go to your family, there's a high possibility that your family is going to look down on you. You're going to turn out like some sort of like an embarrassment to your family, because of marriage was something that was highly valued. So that's why with what Tisetso Marakala is saying, that right now a lot of women are unable to free themselves from abusive relationships because of who's going to take care of them. Marriage and relationship for them, it's some sort of like dependence. But one thing that I've come to realize about our generation, it's something that I love. For the longest time in a human history, a woman can be able to be independent by getting employment. A woman can be able to be independent by studying a side hustle and also studying a business. Women are so much free for the very longest time in the history of humanity. So I think this should actually be a wake-up call to women to say that, not to have ego and say that now I have a job, no man can tell me anything, but to say that you have a job, you can be able to be independent. And when you get into a marriage, when you get into a relationship, it is not about getting into a relationship or a marriage with the mindset of wanting to use a man as a means to an end so that you can be able to be dependent. So Tisetso, thank you so much for sending through that voice note. We appreciate it a lot just to hear your view on gender-based violence. And with gender-based violence, I think I've come to realize that the truth about gender-based violence is that gender-based violence is the result of the effect of generational trauma. So many of our grandmothers were inflicted with fear. They constantly had internal limiting conversation and also the external limiting conversations. Our grandmothers taught our mothers the very same thing that they were taught, and our mothers are still in abusive relationships. It's hard for them to free themselves from abusive relationships. So our mothers were inflicted with fear by our grandmothers, and it is exactly what they are trying to do right now. Our mothers, our parents are trying to inflict us with the very same fear that they had. So you see, it came from one generation to the next generation up until to where we are right now as we are experiencing gender-based violence. That's why I say that the truth about gender-based violence is that gender-based violence is the result of the effect of generational trauma. It's those pains that we have experienced, that our mothers have experienced, that our grandmothers have experienced, but due to the limiting conversations that they constantly had on day-to-day basis, it was difficult for them to be able to free themselves from those experiences. But as a result, they just had to cope with those problems that they constantly had. And during this previous month of March, we had a session of gender-based violence dialogue at my work, which is Alitukwe Community Care Center, as I'm a gender-based violence, as a team leader on the gender-based violence program at my work. So we had a 2-week session to come and have a dialogue session about gender-based violence. So the first week we had a dialogue with elderly people, and the second week we had a dialogue with youth. And one thing that I've realized from the session we had with our elders is that our elders are so brutally broken inside, but because of the only thing that they were taught growing up in their era, in their age, was to cope from the situations that they were going through. That's why even now, they are so silent and quiet, not saying anything about the things that they went through. That's why in this generation as youth, we think that gender-based violence is something that starts with us right now. But the truth is, gender-based violence is something that started back in the days of our grandmothers, back in their age. But the difference with them and us right now is that with them, they were silenced to never say anything about the things that they went through. Instead, they were taught to cope with their problems. But with us, we've got freedom of speech. We can talk about the things that we want, that we are going through, the experiences that we are going through. That's why right now we are free to raise our voice as to the daily challenges that we actually come across. Like with us here on the Unpacked Show, basically what we're talking about, it is the challenges that youth come across as we go about building and improving our lives. So you can see that now we as youth, we have the freedom to speak out the things that we want. We have social media, we've got newspapers, we've got blogs, we've got internet, we've got radio. There's so many platforms, even podcasts, where we can actually talk about the things that we come across on day-to-day basis. So back in their days, our grandmothers, they were so silenced because of they didn't have the privilege to get an access to the platforms that we have right now as youth. Because of right now, with the platforms that we have at our disposal, we can use them so that we can be able to voice up the things and the challenges that we are going through. And from that session, I was so shocked, to be honest, to listen to our mothers, our grandmothers talking about the things that they were experiencing. You know, one thing that actually touched me during the session was that hearing our grandmothers saying that our children right now, they don't know hore malwetse a re alwalang, malwetse a re fokolang. It is because of the abuse that we had in our relationships. And man, like I almost cried. Honestly speaking, I almost cried. Like I was so broken because of like even the people who were sitting next to me, they recognized that I almost cried because of like, yo man, like it actually broke me inside because of it made me reflect to my grandmother and my mother, looking at them going to clinic each and every month, it actually gave me a perspective that it is because of the things that they went through. That's why today some of them the high blood, the heart attack, HIV, malwetse a mantši. I can mention them, countless of illnesses and diseases. It's all because of the violence and the abuse that they experienced during their time. And man, like this is to say to us as the new generation, let us not laugh at each other. I see how we break each other on day-to-day basis. When someone is ill, going to clinic, we laugh at them. When someone is losing weight, we laugh at them. When someone is crying after moving out of a relationship, we laugh at them. We just don't know how hurtful those situations are. To be honest with you, I'm one person that I think I have about 5 years in a row, I've never entered the gate of clinic. I never. During my high school days, I never went to clinic. One reason, I was afraid to be laughed at. I was afraid that if I asked to go to clinic, what will my peers say? What will my friends say? And this is because of I was one person who were laughing at people when they were going to clinic, when they came to school with their own medication, to drink medication in school. And it is until that session where I started to realize that we are going through a lot. We are going through so much, and we shouldn't. This is one of the mistakes that we shouldn't do. We shouldn't laugh at each other. We shouldn't make jokes out of the things that we go through. We shouldn't make jokes when someone is going to the clinic and hospital. We don't know what's going on. We shouldn't make joke when someone is having an asthma. We shouldn't make a joke when someone is HIV positive. We shouldn't make joke when someone is getting to school late because of you don't know what's going on in their background. You shouldn't make joke when someone doesn't have a pocket money in school. You shouldn't make joke when someone doesn't have clothes to wear. You shouldn't make jokes when someone is not doing well in school because of we are going through so much. Some people are being abused. And as a result, they are not coping well in life. But you see someone not coping well in life and you laugh at them, never realizing that that person may be going through a difficult situation in their life. And from the conversation with Chris Chambi, was saying that our parents and grandparents were inflicted with fear. That's why it was difficult for them to thrive and free themselves out of the experiences that they were going through. And so our parents and grandparents lived in fear, and that is exactly what they are doing right now. They are inflicting us with fear. Fear of saying that if you disrespect us, we are going to abandon you. Fear of saying that if you've completed your matric, you finished your studies, you should get a job and be successful. That's why right now, a lot of us as youth, we want success so quick. We want what we want right now. We can't be patient. And for some time, I've been judging the situation, judging people. But until I came to realize that we live in a society, we've built a culture that celebrates quick success. If you are not successful when you have matric or when you graduated, you are never seen as a person enough. You are not a human enough. That's why I can't judge someone who's dating older men to be taken care of. I can't judge someone who's doing prostitution. I can't judge someone who's selling drugs. I can't judge someone who dropped out of school wanting a quick success in life. I can't judge someone who's starting a business wanting to get to be successful in a quick manner. It is because of the culture we've built. It's because of the society that we live in, a society and a culture that celebrates quick success. That's why right now it is difficult for us to be patient with ourselves. It is the fear that is being put in our mind. The fear of saying that if you don't get this thing by this time, it means you are not a human enough. If you are not in a healthy relationship, you are not a human enough. And it is because of social media and the media abroad. The media shows the glimpse and glimpse of life. And when you look into the media, we think that that's how life is. That's why right now we want the happy life, never realizing that happiness is the result of the effort that is being put. As a result, we see happiness. That's why if you've never watched the last episode, go and watch the last episode so that you can have a clear picture of what I'm talking about. Because of the fear that is being put in our mind, it's actually driving us down to the lane of experiencing gender-based violence. That's why right now with the media, with what we see on social media, seeing happy people putting happy pictures, happy moments. When you are with your partner going through some kind of a struggle, you think that your partner is not enough for you. You leave your partner, go to the next person. Now, this is where the danger comes in. If you leave your partner because of their struggle and you are going out there to want a partner who's doing well in life, it means you don't love that person. You don't necessarily love that person. You are just using that person as a means to an end so that you can be able for that person to be able to afford you the lifestyle that you want. And if that person comes to a point in life where they lose everything, it means you are going to lose them. So you see, in today's day and age, we no longer love each other. We are just using each other as a means to an end. And as a result, that's why we constantly experience gender-based violence. That's why women are so killed. That's why children are so killed. Because of women use you to afford a fancy lifestyle, a luxurious lifestyle that they want. And as a man, after I lose my job, lose everything, see you walking away after everything that I did for you. It triggers something in my mind to say that this person can't just walk away after after I've given them exactly what they wanted. I should just kill that person and kill myself. That's what a lot of guys do. We've seen it a lot of time. People killing themselves and their partners as a result of their partner leaving them to find the greener pastures out there from other people. And that's why right now we live with the pressure of wanting to be successful quickly because of the culture that we live in, and also the society that tells us that you need to be successful in a quicker manner. And as for youth, one thing that I've realized from the session we had is that there are so many factors as to why we experience gender-based violence. But from that dialogue, one of the hottest topic that we talked about was that lack of parenting is actually the main factor that is contributing to people experiencing gender-based violence. Because of lack of parenting, it leads us to making uninformed decisions in life. We make decisions that makes us to actually experience gender-based violence, and we end up destroying our lives. See, lack of parenting, it's one of the biggest factor that we need to put an eye on. And I'm glad that being the team leader of gender-based violence at my work, and right now we are actually working on another project of young mothers, helping young mothers learn how to parent to their children, because we've realized that parenting as well, it's one of the biggest factor contributing to gender-based violence. It means that we need to teach youth, which are young mothers, to be able to learn on how to parent. Because of, I'm talking about lack of parenting because of a lot of us, we were raised by single parents, and as a result, there are so many things that we were never taught in life. There are so many things that we wished we could have learned in life, and as a result, our parents never taught us those things about life. One thing that I've come to realize this, and it's actually a mantra, something that I tell myself each and every day, to say, Johannes, you don't need to have life figured out. Even though you need to chase the dreams and the things you want to achieve, but never put yourself under the pressure of wanting to have life figured out, because of the single thing that makes us to have pressure, being inflicted with fear that you need to have your life figured out. That's why in school you are taught that once you finish matric, graduate, you need to get a job. But right now our country, South Africa, is experiencing a high rate of unemployment. And as a result, a lot of people, when they are experiencing unemployment, not getting jobs, they destroy their life. They give up in life because of people are not employed. So we need to relearn about life. We need to restructure our life. Look at life from a broader perspective, to say that most of the things that we are taught no longer relate to the life we live in, to the time we live in, because we are taught that you need to have your life figured out. And as a result, life is difficult. That's one thing that I've come to realize about life. In life, each and every day, man, we wake up to fight challenges. There are so many things that are standing on our way. There are so many stumbling blocks that are standing on our way. The stumbling blocks that when you wake up, you need to keep on fighting them. So if you can live with the mindset of wanting to have your life figured out, you are going to end up leading yourself to experiencing gender-based violence. And as a result, you are going to end up destroying your own life, because of if you want to have your life figured out, you are going to actually be led to get into a relationship with people who are successful, so that those people can give you the privilege to have the luxurious life that you want. That's why right now a lot of us as young people, we've actually destroyed our life. And I'm sitting where I am right now, looking down the lane into the future, 10 years, 20 years to come, and say, where is the life of young people? Where is the future of our country? Because we are taught that as young people, we are the leaders of tomorrow. But if we constantly destroy our life at this stage, what is going to happen to the leadership of our country? And I've been one person who had so many questions about life. And it is until I came to realize that some questions in life, in order to get answers, you just have to explore life in order to get answers. Because so many questions that we have, they have to do with the reality we live in. And it is also because of the contradiction between what we are taught and our experience. So we question so much our experience because of the things we were taught by our parents. And what I've come to realize is that this world, it's been built by the people who came before us. Our parents, our leaders of the country, our leaders of organizations have built the world we live in today because of based on their desires, based on their visions. And right now we live in a world that is being created by the leaders, by our parents, by even different leaders from different companies to create the world we live in today, which is their future right now. And right now, the reason why we find it difficult, we have so many questions about life, it is because we have a vision of where we want to see ourselves. But it is so difficult to build our vision of what we want because of the laws, the culture we live in, and our society. It makes it difficult. So we have so many questions as to how is this society being built? Who built this culture that we live in? So those questions, if we can allow ourselves to explore life, do things, that's when we will be able to get the answers we need. Because I'm going to talk about parenting to say that, as a young person, you can blame your parents for so many things. And it is until you have your own child, that's when you will realize and discover the true meaning of parenting. And it is also the moment where we realize that, fuck, I've been blaming my parents, and now I'm a parent. I can see some of the things that I was blaming my parents on, and now I'm taking the steps based on the blames and the mistakes that we think they did. And right now it is our time to take a stand, to be leaders, to shape this world in order to be a better place. The future that we are looking into, it is the future where our children will live in. And our children will live in the world that will be created by us. And they themselves will be having their own vision. And now they will be building the vision, which is their future, based on the world they live in, which is the world that have been built by us. That's why I say that I have been one of the person who've been asking myself so many questions and having so many questions about life. And it is until I realized that some questions to be answered, you need to explore life and discover answers as you take everything one step at a time. So this is what we had for you this week, talking about gender-based violence. And I think you've enjoyed this. I think you've drawn some value out of it. And please do share your comments do share your thoughts on the comment section below. Tell us your thoughts about gender-based violence, about the topic we've been talking about today, and also share your thoughts about what you wish for us to talk about on the next coming episode. And also, do share those voice notes. We love it so much when you share those voice notes, because of this is not only about us being here talking to you, it is also about you being part of the conversation, because of we are building each other. There's this beautiful notion that I love that says it takes a village to raise a child. So like we do on the Unpacked Show podcast, us and you engaging on the topic that we talk about in order to build each other. So till we meet again on the next episode, be blessed, be healthy, and as my role model Vusi Tembekwayo once said, have the spirit of the underdog. Goodbye.